Tonight, two legal flashpoints take center stage. House prosecutors want that mythical sealed green BIR box opened, saying now is the right time to check tax records linked to Vice President Sara Duterte's unexplained wealth. But the defense says not so fast, insisting that only the impeachment court gets to decide whether the box becomes part of the evidence. And from a green box of tax records to a case igniting another national debate, the Tacloban school shooting puts the spotlight on juvenile justice with a 15-year-old suspect facing serious complaints. Southern Illinois-based Filipino criminology professor Raymond Narag will join us live to weigh in on proposals to lower the age of criminal liability. Good evening, I'm Lourdes de Vera. The House prosecution team is seeking to open the sealed BIR box with Vice President Sara Duterte's tax records before the trial. For more details, let's talk to our mobile journalist, Merymon Reyes. Merymon, why does the prosecution insist on opening the green box before the actual trial?
Lured, according to Representative Laila De Lima, who is part of the House prosecution panel, while the pretrial conference is still ongoing, it would be more efficient if mabuksan na raw itong green BIR box at mamarkahan na or makita na kung pwede na itong maipasok as part of the exhibit ng pieces of evidence for the trial proper. While last time kasi, nung nasa House Committee on Justice ito, napagbotohan nga kasi na due to confidentiality issues, whether or not it would be used for in aid of legislative inquiry or kailangan closed door executive session lang yung rason para buksan ito. Ngayon, transmitted siya sa Senado and they are awaiting if it's possible. Meanwhile, sabi naman dito ng defense attorney Michael they are studying itong manifestation of the House prosecution Bantug. On a personal opinion or on a conference, hindi umabot yung pagbubukas nitong green na BIR box o mamarkahan ito, pwede pa naman daw yan during the trial proper. Pero ayaw niya raw i-preempt yung desisyon kasi this is a matter to be considered and decided upon by the Senate as an impeachment court. What's clear as of this day, ilalakad ni Attorney Bantug itong manifestation ng House Prosecution Panel sa opisina ng mga Senator Judge. Makikipag-usap siya kay Senate President Sherwin Gatchalian maging sa ibang mga senador na magsisilbing Senator Judge sa impeachment trial. Lord.
Okay, Merymon, sabi ni Sergeant si Sir Bantug, optimistic ba siya that everything can be finished by Friday? Because otherwise, what's the option? What's the alternative kung hindi natapos?
Lord, tight ang schedule pero hindi pa raw imposible yung supposed July 6 na target start of the impeachment trial. Ang sinasabi ni Attorney Bantug, worst case scenario, aabot ng Friday. Pero so far sa nakikita nila, naging mabilis naman daw yung pre-marking of documentary evidence kasi nadagdagan na ng isa pang marking team or marking station. And so far, pagdating sa impeachment article or article of impeachment 1 pertaining sa alleged misuse of public funds or confidential funds, around 1,300 na raw ang naproseso at namarkahan. Pero in general counting, out of 8,000 documentary evidence, so far wala pa talagang clear count ngayon kung gaano nakalayo itong pre-trial conference. Pero nakikita nila, hopefully by tomorrow, matapos na talaga nila ito, especially daw yung sa Article 2, pertaining naman ito sa allegation ng unexplained wealth of VP Sara Duterte. And ang pinaka-maximum nila, hopefully until Friday, Saturday, reserved daw ito sana for housekeeping on other impeachment matters. Monday or Tuesday, sana magkaroon na ng paglalabas ng pre-trial order. Pagka naglabas kasi naman ito, bibigyan ng 3 araw parehong House Prosecution Panel and Defense Team to file their comments. So far, yung 3 araw naman na yun, hindi pa naman daw umaabot talaga ng July 6, kaya kaya pa naman daw yung impeachment trial calendar so far. Lord.
Sinasabi ni Congressman Luis Roda, everything can be finished fast kung pumayag lang daw ang defense na magkaroon sila, yung proposal na, kung pumayag sa proposal na yung common exhibits be marked as one.
Yes, Lord. Kaso hindi talaga ito tinatanggap ng defense team. It's not an option for them kasi yung isang sinite nilang example, may certain document na while reportedly it may be similar for both the prosecution panel and the defense team, kulang daw ng page yung meron or yung dokumentong meron ang House Prosecution Panel. So yun daw yung point nila or reason nila. Kaya gusto daw nilang maging maingat at maging kanya-kanya ang pagmamarka ng mga ebidensya. Kaya so far as yesterday and today is concerned, kanya-kanya pa yung kanilang pagmamarka. Ang kaibahan lang ngayon, sabi naman ng parehong House Prosec pati Defense, kahit pa paano napabilis daw kasi nadagdagan naman ng isa pang marking station. Lord.
Tama ba, Marymon, hanggang ngayon wala pa ring definite answer kung sino ang magiging presiding officer? Wala pa rin kasiguraduhan ng pangalang Francis Escudero?
Wala pa talaga, Lord. We're even trying to get a new reaction from Senate President Sherwin Gatchalian. Pero yung huli niya talagang nasabi is, as far as he knows and as far as he is concerned, siya ang magsisilbing presiding officer sa pagbubukas lalo sa reconvening ng Senado sa impeachment trial on July 6. Pero ang sinasabi din naman ni Clerk of Court Bantug, pwede nga magpe-preside muna nga si SP, pero kung sakaling isa-set into stone na iba ang magsisilbing presiding officer, during that day na lang daw talaga malalaman. Ang sinasabi din naman ng ibang majority bloc senators, pag-uusapan pa rin naman daw nila ito, including na rin yung lumulutang na pangalan naman ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan, either as a presiding officer or impeachment manager na magsisilbing quarterback ng presiding officer. Lord.
Totoo ba, na may isa raw defense lawyer na nagsabi na they are undermanned? Kaya raw isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit napakabagal ang progreso nitong pre-trial conference.
Lord, actually ang kahapon kasi yung ilang part ng legal counsel or team, defense team ni VP Sara kasama ni Attorney Michael Powa, nakikita daw nila na potential na factor dito kaya medyo nagkakaroon ng extension ay dahil wala raw yung ibang prosecutor, specifically itong mga kongresista. Pero kanina ang sinasabi naman ni Representative Laila De Lima, kaya nga raw siya nandito. Kaya raw kahapon, nandoon si Congresswoman Jervy Luistro, sa bandang hapon si Congressman Terry Ridon, kanina naman daw sa hapon, which we also saw, was Congressman Chel Jokno. Yun daw yung presensya nila at wala raw kahit na anong delaying tactics whatsoever or kakulangan sa tao pagdating daw dito sa pre-trial. Pero sabi naman ni Attorney Michael Powa, pareho naman daw na panig, gustong ma-expedite talaga itong pre-trial conference and they are both working as much as they could para matapos na talaga itong mga documentary evidence na kailangan markahan. Lord.
Meron pa pala mga ipapasabi na raw na mga bank records on top of everything, Marymon?
Lord, ang sabi dito, well, may mga pre-trial briefs kasi na naipasa parehong House Prosec pati ang defense. Pero ang isang pumapasok din dito sa usapin ay yung tinatawag na reserved witnesses or reserved evidence. Well, hindi nagbabanggit pa to be specific either House Prosec or defense pero yan yung aabangan natin sa paparating na trial proper. Pero ang malinaw ngayon and part din ng manifestation ng House Prosecution ay yung pag-agree nila sa hinihingi ng defense team na requirement na disclosure 3 days before the presentation sa impeachment court kung sakaling merong witnesses pa silang ipepresenta. Lord.
Nako, Marymon. Okay. So yung July 6, ano yung posibilidad na hindi mauurong or maurong ang July 6?
So far, Lord, according to Secretary Bantug, July 6 is still July 6. Wala pa rin napapag-usapan na magkakaroon ng ibang date or magkakaroon ng pag-uusog. So far naman, tight lang yung schedule pero hindi pa naman daw enough para magkaroon na ng epekto sa supposed July 6 na start ng impeachment trial. Basta ang target talaga nila, hanggat maaari ngayong weekend matapos na talaga, Saturday will be for housekeeping on other impeachment matters or concerns. Monday or Tuesday, paglalabas na ng pre-trial order. 3 days for the comment of both panels. And then, abot pa naman daw yun para sa July 6 na impeachment trial. Lord.
Nako. Okay, so halimbawa, alam ko, may narinig ako nagtanong kanina, no, na sa Lunes, kung Lunes, at ano yung sinasabi mga housekeeping matters daw nitong si Attorney Bantug? Ano ba? What exactly would be covered under housekeeping?
Lord, walang binanggit kasi si Sec Bantug, pero puwera raw kasi sa pre-trial conference, may iba pa raw kasing baka kailangang asikasuhin ng impeachment court or kinakailangan yung atensyon ng impeachment court. This would include yung iba pang necessary preparations for the upcoming trial set on July 6. Kaya ayaw talaga, una talaga dapat hanggang bukas lang, June 25 talaga yung pre-trial conference. Dapat nga maglalabas na nga bukas ng pre-trial order or target talaga. Pero dahil nga sa volume nitong dami ng documentary evidence, hindi raw talaga maiiwasan. Nasabi pa ni Sec Bantog, baka raw nung ginagawa yung impeachment trial calendar nung una, optimistic daw na matatapos yung pre-trial conference within 2 days. Pero ngayon nakikita nila hindi raw talaga kaya. Kaya mag-extend pero wag nang sosobra pa para hindi nga talaga maapektuhan yung schedule ng trial.
At nagsabi rin daw ang prosecution na mukhang kailangan pa nila ng dagdag na tao para mapabilis ito.
Oo, pero so far, ang sabi naman kasi ni Representative De Lima is nakatulong naman yung additional marking team kaninang umaga. Yung part kasi, pero patungkol doon sa manifestation nila, yung iba kasing binanggit nila doon is yung panghihingi tungkol sa presentation or participation ng both public and private prosecutors pagdating sa pag-e-examine at pagpe-present ng witnesses. Pero during the trial proper na to. So far naman, optimistic naman both sides na kung ano man ang mangyari, dagdag na rin yung naitulong na additional marking team, matapos na talaga nila in due time itong pre-trial conference. Lord.
Okay, so yung nasa 4,000 plus na kailangang markahan ng mga pahina, nasaan na sila doon? At gaano raw karami supposedly yung nilalaman ng mga pahina ng mga BIR documents doon sa so-called green box?
Lord, pagdating sa House Prosec panel, wala pang nakakaalam or nakakakita kasi nga hindi ito na-cite or nabuksan sa or na-unseal ng House Committee on Justice. So hanggang sa transmittal nito dito sa Senado, sealed pa siya. And ang tawag ni Sec Bantog dito, kahon pa rin naman daw siya. Kahon lang din pa siya as of now, dahil hindi pa nga siya nabubuksan at hindi pa ni Sec Bantog, 4,000, yung mga document mix around 8,000 documentary evidence na kailangan nila iproseso. Walang distinct number pa ng progress nila so far, pero ang nabanggit ng kanina for Article 1 or the alleged misuse of public funds, 1,300 documentary evidence na raw ang kanilang na-process at namarkahan na. Ang huling nasabi, ilang libo din daw yung pumapatak pagdating sa unang article na matimbang talaga o mabigat pagdating sa pre-trial conference. Lord.
Alright. Maraming salamat ang ating mobile journal, Merrimon Reyes. Okay, more developments ahead here on Political Beat. Please don't go away. The deadly school shooting in Tacloban City has once again reignited the debate over juvenile justice in the Philippines. With a 15-year-old now facing murder and frustrated murder charges in connection with the attack, questions are now being raised about accountability, about rehabilitation, and whether the country should revisit the minimum age of criminal responsibility. And to help us understand the issue, we are joined by Illinois-based Filipino criminology and criminal justice professor Raymond Narag, who has a insider's view, which means he knows whereof he speaks. Magandang gabi, Professor Narag.
Magandang gabi rin sa iyo, Lords, at saka lahat ng yung tagapakinig.
Alright, sir. Bakit kaya tingin ninyo tuwing may nangyayaring ganito involving ang mga minors, no? Laging ang, para sa, kumbaga dati parang heinous crime, death penalty. Ito naman, lower the age of criminal responsibility. Bakit siya pabalik-balik despite opposition from many child advocates na napag-aralan mga bagay na ito?
Well, it's natural and it's common na kapag may incident na ganito, very serious, tatlong namatay, and ang mga involved ay mga bata na wala dapat kamuang-muang pero ngayon ay they look very devilish, right? The common, I would not say knee-jerk, but it's a common reaction is kumbaga vengeance. Kinakailangan may managot, kinakailangan mayroong magdusa dito sa nangyaring ito. And it's usually the common reaction is titingnan nila bakit nakakalusot daw itong mga bata, right? And so there's a lot of misconception dito sa batas na ito. And it's that misconception about the law, its mechanics, its criteria for punishment that leads all to this confusion, to this angst against the law, right? So ako, natutuwa ako at naimbitahan mo ako rito para sa ganun mapag-usapan at may paliwanag natin that this law is actually very good. It has mechanism for accountability. It has a mechanism for making sure that the perpetrators are held to account, though ni-revise niya ang definition ng accountability, right? From punitive accountability to rehabilitative accountability. At yun dapat ang maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan.
So, yung punitive ay may parusa factor, ang rehabilitation ay may pagbabago.
That's right, that's right.
Pero sa punto de vista nung aggrieved na pamilya, parang I think natural human instinct is to seek satisfaction. Makita niyang mahirapan din yung ng agrabyado sa kanya at sa anak niya. Pero paano mababalansin yun?
That's right.
Doc?
Tama yun at tayo nakikisimpatiya ng taos-puso sa mga namatayan. Hindi natin, kumbaga, minamaliit yung kanilang nararamdaman, right? They rightfully deserve to be given justice, right? Kinakailangan talaga may mananagot. And yung ating batas ay mayroong mekanismo sa pagpapanagot sa mga kahit na bata na minor de edad at sila pa rin ay may kaparusahan, right? So for example, dun sa amendment ng ginawa ng batas, yung section 20A na nagsasabi na kapag 12 years to 15 years and if you're charged with a very serious offense, pwedeng magkaroon ng yung pagpa-file yung Local Social Welfare Development Office or yung DSWD or yung PAO lawyer mismo ng involuntary commitment, right? And they could stay there for at least 1 year. It could be extended for another year, as long as hindi nakakakitaan ng pagbabago yung individual po na yun. Alright? And they are put in a bahay pag-asa, which is also a facility. Though hindi natin tinatawag na detention facility, it's a house of hope. But still, ikaw po ay limited ang inyong movement. Hindi ka makakauwi ng bahay, hindi ka pwedeng pumunta kung saan-saan. You are staying there 24 hours in a very secured facility. Right? So yun po, yung mekanismo po na yan. Kasi ang goal talaga ng batas na ito is huwag maulit yung nangyayari.
Bakit walang siniset universally na minimum age of responsibility? The median age, sinasabi kong totoo, meron mga iba na sa 10 pa nga eh.
Mayroon 9.
Oo, merong 9.
As early 7. May 7 years old.
May 7. Pero ang mag-meet daw sila sa kung ang average mo ay 12 years of age. Ano po, meron po ba kayo opposition doon sa 10 years of age? At ano ba to? By race, by nation? Bakit nag-iiba-iba ang mga pamantayan?
Yes. Actually, yan yung tinuturo ko ngayon. Mayroong mga countries that they have their minimum age of criminal responsibility set at 7 years old. Mayroong 8, 9, 10, 11. Pero mayroon naman as high as 16. Alright?
Sorry, ano mga bansa po yung nagsa-7?
If I have hindi ko makalimutan ko at the top of my head right now. Pero for example, Argentina has an age of 16. Sila yung pinaka, kumbaga, liberal, ika nga. The United States, in some instances, very, very low ang kanilang age of criminal responsibility. Some states has as low as 7 or some states as low as 9. Right? Ang United Nations, pinipilit nila na magkaroon ng standard. Right?
It's the rights of the child.
So the rights of the child. Pero each state has their own definitions kasi may religious undertones. For example, yung mga Islamic countries, they use what they call puberty, presence of puberty. Pag ikaw ay nagpalit na ng boses, ng boses mo, or nagkaroon ka ng changes sa katawan, nagkaroon ka ng regla. So yun yung mga basis nila for kumbaga discerning kung ikaw ay juvenile na, right? So hindi mo yan maiwasan dahil iba-iba naman yung kultura natin, and so each country comes up with their own definition of minimum age of criminal responsibility. Prior to that, the Philippines has a very, very low one, right? Kaya mga bata noon, kahit 9 or 10 years old, hinuhuli natin sila, dinadala natin sila sa mga city jails noon. Nung ako ay nakakulong, if you remember, I was put in jail. Sa Quezon City Jail doon, may mga kasama kami din, 16, 17 years old. At anong nangyayari sa kanila? Sila yung mga bunso namin na inuutusan, minsan nakakasama namin sa selda, sa brigada, kasama nila yung mga drug dealer, kasama nila yung mga kidnapper. So ano nangyayari? Paglaya ng mga batang ito, they become worse off. Right? So naalala natin siguro yung mga panahon na yon na ang mga bahay kulungan natin sa mga bata, kumaga mayhem, ang gugulo nila. Walang rehabilitation, walang treatment. Kaya yun na naging impetus. Kaya noong 2006, nagkaroon tayo ng Juvenile Justice Welfare Act. At
Masingit
ito,
ko lang, Prof, yung pelikula ni Ditsy Carolino na of the same title.
Bunso.
Yung
Yeah.
Bunso, same opo, the same name. Napakalaki ng nagawa rin siguro noon.
That's right. That moved mountains noon, and tayo ay nagkaroon ng realization that we should not punish children similar as adults kasi una, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, hindi pa sila fully developed. Right? Now, ako naman ay tinitingnan ko yung concern nitong mga nananawagan ng punishment sa mga bata na lalong-lalo na nang gumagawa ng heinous crime. And sa United States, mayroon kaming tinatawag na two-pronged approach. Two-pronged approach, right? Kapag less serious offense, right? Halimbawa, nag-vandalize ka, ikaw ay nagnakaw, right? Then the full rehabilitative model ay pwede pa rin natin gamitin, which is what is the Juvenile Justice Welfare Council is saying right now. Pero kapag mayroong mga serious offense, right? Terrorism or drug dealing, talagang malalaking amounts, or tulad ng nangyari nito, mass murder, three people ang namatay, then mayroon kang separate prong for them. Alright? And you are now going to look at it as a more critical, or a more, kumbaga, what we call this, accountable din yung manner ng pagtitreat mo sa kanila. And that's what I think the Juvenile Justice Welfare did as well when nagkaroon tayo ng amendment sa batas. The original batas is 2006, tapos nagkaroon tayo ng amendment noong 2013, right? Dahil nga sa may mga bata na very serious. And so nagkaroon tayo ng bagong mechanism sa batas na kapag 12 to 15 years old ka at nakagawa ka ng serious offense, pwede ka pa rin ikulong at ikaw ay magkaroon ng involuntary commitment hanggang sa hindi ka nagbabagong buhay. Alright? So, mayroon tayong mechanisms to have a two-pronged approach. Ang kulang nga lang natin is yung mga bahay pag-asa natin ay hindi pa lahat ng syudad ay may bahay pag-asa, hindi pa lahat ng mga bahay pag-asa personnel natin ay trained kung paano mag-deal sa mga serious violent offenders, at kulang pa rin ang ating mga resources. So imbes na buwagin natin tong batas na napakaganda ang intensyon, pero dahil hindi napapatupad ng maayos, sinisisi natin ang batas. Hindi. Dapat ipatupad natin ng maayos, bigyan natin ng resources, make it work. Because in the long run, tayo rin naman ang magbe-benefits as a society.
Okay. So proposal ng isang senador na ibaba to age 10 kasi wala siya pinipresentang studies. Ang sinasabi niya, because he's fairly intimate with the workings of the criminal mind kasi na kalaboso na rin siya dati, no? Na naging PDL siya. At sinasabi niya, yun ang binibigay niyang dahilan. Of course, may ganong experience. Mamaya, pag-usapan natin yung talang buhay ni Dr. Narag, ano? Pero, sapat ba na dahilan yun para i-lower yung to 10 years old, yung ganong sinabi? Kasi nakulong ako dati at familiar ako sa ganyang pag-iisip.
Well, I would respect the senator's position because that's his lived experience, and I do believe he's using deterrence theory as a basis for calling for lower age of criminal responsibility. And deterrence theory says that kapag punitive ka, right, kung ikaw ay tawag dito, very serious ang punishment, right? Therefore, people will be deterred from committing a crime, right? Pero yan lang ay isang assumption ng deterrence theory. Ang isa pang assumption ng deterrence theory is naintindihan ng tao yung cost and benefit, right? Na kapag ginawa niya ito, at ito yung consequences sa kanyang behavior, right? Kung mas mataas yung benefit, then gagawin niya. Pero kung mas mataas yung cost, hindi niya gagawin. That's assuming that you are a thinking criminal, right? But if you're a 10-year-old, if you're even 11 or 12, right? Yung research do suggest that yung frontal vortex ng ating brain ay hindi pa fully developed, right? So yung executive functioning mo, you cannot easily determine what's right from what is wrong. Kaya kahit na napaka-punitive, right, na 12 years old, ikulong natin siya habang buhay, hindi yan maintindihan ng bata, right? Hindi yan maintindihan ng bata, and they don't put that into their calculation. In fact, magkakaroon sila ng miscalculation. Alright? Therefore, kahit nababaan natin yung age of criminal responsibility, it would not affect yung propensity ng mga batang ito na gumawa ng krimen because they will not put that into their calculation. Now, ano dapat gawin natin para itong mga bata na ito ay hindi ma-involve sa krimen or sa juvenile delinquency? Yun ang dapat mas malaking pag-usapan natin. Huwag natin sisihin yung batas. So, again, many research do suggest that yung mga bata na very poor ang kanilang parental upbringing, they grew up in an environment that violence is being, celebrated and tolerated. And now, mayroon kang additional element ng exposure sa social media, yung mga nilalaro nilang mga games. So, yung mga cognitive scripts na kanilang na-pick up, right? Okay lang gumawa ng violence as a form of expression. YOLO, you live only but once, right? You have to actualize it. Na-pick up nila yung mga violence sa ibang bansa, yung mga violent culture ng ibang bansa, dinadala nila dito. And of course, yung access mo sa firearms. We have one of the more loose firearms in the Philippines. So coupled lahat ng iyan dun sa growing problem of mental health, right?
But law-wise, we have some of the strictest gun laws.
That's right, formally. But informally, it's so easy to access guns in our country, right? So maraming access pa rin sa
On that issue, Dr. Narag, see, they've always said that school shootings, Columbine, Virginia Tech, Parkland will never ever happen in the Philippines. But here we are. Pero ano nga ba yung kaibahan? Pareho ba ng mentalidad yung mga school shootings na maihahambing dito? At yung pagsuot ng isang t-shirt na parang signifier din ng isang may suot na t-shirt doon sa isang sikat na school shooting sa States. Ito ba ay indikasyon ng alam niya yung ginagawa niya? May pinagbasehan siyang model? Paano ba natin tatanggapin?
Right. This is the scourge of our generation. Dahil may strong internet, may social media, what happens to one place is covered and kumbaga nag-glorify sa isang lugar, right? Limbawa, nangyari ng patayan sa Parkland, right? Ang daming mga estudyante na nasugatan, tapos full coverage ng media and social media dun sa attacker. Ang dating sa iba, parang nagiging popular siya, hindi siya notorious and it inspires other copycats, right? Magugulat ka na lang, from Florida, mangyayaring susunod sa California, which is miles apart, right? And there's a commonality, right? That they glorify violence, that they glorify self-expression through violence, right? And yan ngayon ay kumakalat buong mundo. And magugulat ka na lang, maaaring magkaroon ng expression of similar things in Australia. And tayo noon, very, kumbaga, confident tayo that it will not reach the Philippine shore kasi tayo noon ay mayroong very strong family ties. Yung community natin involved sa pagbabantay sa
Maraming
mga bata.
Maraming marites sa Pilipinas.
Maraming marites.
Pinaplano mo pa lang, may chismosa na dyan sa tabi.
That's right. But eventually, all of those are loosening up. All of those are, kumbaga, nagkakaroon ng breakdown. And one way or the other, mayroong mga bata sa isang lugar tulad ng Tacloban na na-expose sa ganitong mga ideas, and siguro nagkaroon sila access ng baril, and then coupled with mental health problems, yung mga stresses ng mga bata ngayon na hindi nila alam ma-express ang kanilang sarili socially, very active sila sa internet, nakikipag-away sila sa internet, nakikipag-kaibigan sila sa internet, pero very socially awkward sila in real life.
Ayan.
They could not even talk to their uncles and cousins, right? Because nasanay na sila sa internet, and it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. Nagkakaroon sila ng emotional burden, right? Hindi sila matanggap, mayroon silang prior rejection sa community nila, at yun ngayon ang nagiging dahilan: internet, rejection, access to guns, mental health, boom, mayroon tayong mga
Kasi
incident na ganito.
ang sinasabi ng mga teachers, tahimik lang daw itong mga to. Oo. So, sorry, pero Doc, alam ko, kaninong problema to magpo-fall under? Sa bahay ba?
Lahat. This
Sa
is a
school,
problem, ang tawag natin dito, multi-domain, multi-level problem, right? At the individual level, yung mga bata na mayroong tinatawag na psychological burden, right? Emotional maladjustment. That's at the individual level. So maraming mga bata ngayon at risk at the individual level. Hindi nila ma-express ang kanilang sarili. Very low ang self-confidence nila, tahimik, right? Hindi sila nakikipag-usap. And then, lakihan mo yan at the family level. Kung ang family ay may protective factors, yung parents ay nagda-nurture, yung parents nakikinig sa problema ng bata, yung parents nagpo-provide ng guidance and supervisions, minomonitor yung ginagawa sa labas, then kahit anong burden individually, it could be overcome by the parental protective factors. Pero kung yung father ay absentee dahil nag-a-abroad, yung mama ay very busy sa trabaho, and walang nagmo-monitor sa ginawa, nandun ka lang sa taas ng bahay mo, nagmumukmok doon sa computer, kung kani-kanino usap, right? Walang monitoring sa exposure mo sa mga ibang delinquent peers, that individual burden, right, na ikaw ay maladjusted, covered by a lack of care in the home, boom, double whammy ka na. Now, hindi pa naman lahat ng tao na may problema sa individual family ay nagiging, kumbaga, masama, right? Kasi mayroon pa rin namang other protective factors. Halimbawa, siguro nakadiscover siya na sa school nila may basketball at yung coach niya ay mabait at tinulungan siya. So mayroon pa rin protective factor, or yung siguro yung kanyang naging mga barkada school ay nag-aaral at nainganyo siya rin mag-aral. Pero what if kung sa school ay wala rin pakialam yung mga teachers, right? Wala siyang opportunity to become part of academic group, sports group. Tapos nire-reject po siya ng mga peers niya kasi ngayon hindi siya marunong makipagsalita, awkward siya, pinagtatawanan siya, right? Tapos yung parents wala rin pakialam, rejected ng peers. And then, may access siya sa mga internet na doon nagkakaroon siya ng buhay, right? He is glorified sa kanyang mga ideas na, hey, pumatay tayo, right? Kahit lang yan sa games. But eventually, it could eventually find expressions in real life.
Grabe, yung simple kindness na maipapakita mo, hindi mo alam kasi kung ano yung pinagdadaanan ng isang tao.
That is correct.
Pero yung simpleng kindness lang na iparamdam mo sa kanya, kahit hindi kayo close, ay maaring dalhin niya at magbago ang pananaw niya sa that not everyone in humankind are a-holes. Pero meron mo ba kayo nakitang may halimbawa kayo ng successful juvenile system sa ibang bansa? Ano-ano itong mga to? At bakit tinatanong nila, bakit may iba successfully na re-rehabilitate, ang iba naman mga recidivists, mga repeat offenders? Ba't may mga ganun? Isang Pinoy na paniniwala, meron kasi lahing ano yan. Meron ba talagang delinquent gene?
Okay. May mga pag-aaral na sinasabi nila yung genes ay inherited. Kapag yung tatay mo ay agresibo, yung anak rin ay agresibo. But then, what we found is that hindi yun yung talagang nagde-decide at nagde-define sa'yo. Kasi kahit na mayroon kang aggressive genes, kung ikaw ay may self-control, kung ikaw ay na-nurture ng magulang na maayos, right? Na-overcome mo. And gagamit mo yung aggressive genes mo towards good use. Right? Nagiging kumbaga basketball player ka, kailangan ng aggressiveness sa basketball, right? Pero hindi mo siya ina-actualize into form of violence. So genes in and of itself is not very definitive of criminal involvement. At walang group of people that are predisposed to crime.
Wala talaga.
Wala naman, alright? So criminal predisposition again is kumbaga combination of so many factors at the individual level, family level, school level, community level, societal level. And if we want to curb delinquency in the long run, dapat tayo mag-invest right from the very beginning. Ang tawag natin dyan, justice reinvestment, hindi at the end. Kasi ngayon, ginagawa natin, we build jails, we build, put them very long in prisons, and then i-punish natin sila ng gusto. And that's very costly. That's very costly. Papakainin mo, of course, dadamitan mo.
May sinabi ka sa interview na mas mahal pa mag-maintain ng isang PDL kaysa sa UP student.
Of course, yeah. That's very true. Right now, one PDL for food and of course, yung sahod ng mga empleyado na nagbabantay sa kanya is around 140,000 pesos a year.
Talaga, nakita ko yung mga pagkain doon. Dumadalaw ako dati sa... Ang pagkain doon ay, ang joke kanila, kahit yung aso, hindi kakainin yun eh.
That's right. Kasi kulang talaga ang resources natin para sa pagkain.
Pero ngayon, na-increase na kamo.
Na-increase na siya ng 100 pesos
Sa
per
lagay na
person.
yun.
Alright. Pero maliit pa rin yan kumpara sa gastusin natin ngayon. Pero kung idadagdag mo lahat, pati yung sahod ng empleyado na nagbabantay, yung electricity, lahat yan, cost yan eh. Sa pagpapatakbo ng kulungan, lalaki at lalaki yung budget natin para sa pagpapatakbo ng kulungan. So we need to have a more effective, rational criminal justice system. All right? So I understand really that there's a need to punish serious violent offenders and the law actually provides for that. Yun nga lang, nagkaroon ng misconception na parang wala silang accountability. There's accountability, hindi lang punitive yung accountability, kundi rehabilitative yung accountability na pinapatupad ng batas na ito.
Okay. Maraming nagtatanong kung bakit, ano ba yung PDL? Ano ang, of course, yung mga French theorists, know the power of words and the stigma of words that carry with them long after their experience inside, no? Yung paggamit ng PDL ng lipunan, na marami na nga sa media na nasasanay na. Of course, pag sa konteksto ng English, pero gaano kahalaga yung paggamit ng PDL as opposed to, yung ano ko dati yan eh, nasa kalaboso dati, mga ganyan.
Well, it's because of labeling theory, right? In fact, may bagong term kami ngayon, PRL. Persons Restored to Liberty. Pag lumaya ka na, PRL ka na.
PRL.
Right?
Okay.
So ako, PRL ako, parang gano'n. And we come up with a term na hindi nagde-dehumanize, na hindi nagle-label. Kasi before that, kami ay preso, right? Kami ay inmate, kami ay detainee, kami ay convict, right? And if you are labeled, two things happen. One is, it changes your identity. Si Raymond Narag, murderer yan. Matakot ka dyan. So, paninindigan ko, murderer, kasi mayroon palang benefit ang pagiging murderer ko. So, yung label mo, it becomes your master status. At yan ay isa sa buhay mo. Parang build and it shall come.
Kahit
right?
hindi ka guilty.
Kahit hindi ka guilty or kahit guilty ka, paninindigan mo lalo.
Dahil?
And it leads to secondary violence.
Bakit mo paninindigan?
Kasi it has benefits.
Sa loob.
Sa loob at labas. Alright? Kapag ikaw ay nilabel na murderer, takot ang tao sa'yo, then pwede mo nang gamitin yun as a capital para takutin yung iba at nang sa ganun, makuha mo yung gusto mo.
Pero ikaw, ang capital mo nung ikaw ay na-incarcerate, ay ikaw ay may literacy level. Kahit ikaw pa ay nag-work bilang paralegal, tinulungan mo magsulat ng mga liham at ipaintindi sa mga kapwa mo PDL yung mga dokumento. Pero ano yung pumigil sa'yo na Kasi mahahawa ka daw talaga. Kahit sabi mo hindi ka minor de edad. Pero ano yung pinanghawakan mo na hindi ka nadala at hindi ka natatuan o naging part ng kung ano. Although naging mayor po siya, no? Naging bastonero ka rin ba?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, dalawang tingin ko dyan. Ano? At ngayon, nare-realize ko na lang dahil sa academic endeavors ko, socialization and adaptation.
Socialization, adaptation.
Yung mga tao sa loob, right? Sa labas, mayroon silang identity, right? Sila ay teacher, sila ay doctor, sila ay engineer, right? Or whatever, laborer. Pagpasok nila sa loob, right? Nare-realize nila na mayroon palang culture, may values sa loob, right? And for you to survive, kinakailangan mong malaman yon. Salitang kulungan, yung talipapa, etc. So, mapiprisoниze ka. So, there are two things. Pag na-socialize ka, yung values talaga ay pumasok sa'yo. Kumbaga, nilamon ka, na-socialize ka, at naging bahagi ka nila. Ang nangyari sa akin is more of adaptation. Adaptation is, alam ko yung nangyayari, kapag kausap nila ako, ganun ako makipag-usap, pero minemaintain ko yung old Raymond Narag identity. So nagko-code switch ang code switch. Pag dumating yung mga kamag-anak ko, kapatid ko, old Raymond ang kausap nila. Pero kapag kausap ko yung kaselda ko, yung brigade officers namin o yung empleyado, kausap nila si Raymond Narag na
Bosyo.
Kasi it's way of...
Imagine na Bosyo ka, sorry. Okay.
Oo, it's your way of defending yourself, protecting yourself, right? Yung iba, hindi sila conscious sa ganon kung kaya't sila'y nilalamon ng tuluyan. And nare-realize mo na lang na sila na yung nagiging convict mentality.
Ganyan din sa drug rehabilitation, Dr. Narag, na yung madalas yung sa sway ay yung walang fundamental sense of identity. Na hindi nila alam na magaling pala sila sa ganito, yung wala, for some reason or another, ay hindi nila nagagrasp yung core nila.
That's correct.
Opo.
That's right. So mahina yung kanilang foundation. Mahalaga pa rin yung foundation na tinuturo ng magulang, ng simbahan, ng eskwelahan.
Yan. Yung relihiyon, gaano kahalaga para sa'yo?
Napakalaga ang epekto ng reliyon. Nung una, hindi ako naniniwala kasi naging aktivista ako sa UP, naging atheist.
I-research nyo po yung yung talambuhay niya po, ang napakakulay po.
Oo.
Pero hindi kaya idala mo pa rin yung opiate na yun. O baga na desensitize ka nung the drug of faith.
That's right. Pero nagkaroon ako ng transformation sa loob eh. May isang madre na nagsabi sa akin, "Hey Raymond, to whom God is given much, much is expected." Sabi ko, ano naman ang expectation sa akin ni Panginoon dito, sister? Yun pala, ginamit niya ako bilang assistant niya. And nung nakita ng mga PDLs na marunong ako magbasa, magsulat, then dun sila nagsimulang lumapit sa akin. And dun ko na-realize na, oo nga sister, mayroon akong purpose dito. So, yung master identity ko, nireject ko yung pagiging murderer eh. Right? Kumbaga, minentain ko, ako si Raymond Narag, UP student, pahinungod volunteer during the time na tumutulong sa kapwa.
With honors graduating dapat, ha? Take note, with honors graduating. Wrongly accused at natanggal yung huwes doon, may kinalaman pala sa hanky-panky. But i-research po, na-involve po siya sa isang fraternity rumble. Okay. Pero sabi mo, in a way, guilty ka pa rin kasi humawa ka pa rin ng paddle. Kamo.
I was part of a culture of fraternity system that has gone wrong during that time. Kaya, nung ako'y lumaya, naging advocacy ko rin ng no to fraternity violence. Nag-advocate ako no to rumble. Right? Inayos ko yung mga sa UP students, nagtayo kami ng Ambassadors for Peace para sa ganun magkasundo-sundo at wag na tayong magrambulan. Naging advocate din ako ng no to hazing. Right? So, mabuti naman at ngayon, wala nang rumble sa UP. Last rumble I heard is 2018 pa. At hindi na marunong gumawa ng pillback sa mga bata. So, hindi na nila napaimana yung kultura ng rumbulan sa campus.
Ilang units ba yung paggawa ng pillbacks, Dr. Narag?
Ay, naku, nung panahon ko, bahagi yan sa training ng mga fratman.
Okay. Meron akong last question sa iyo, no? Ang dami ko pa sanang tanong eh. Okay, di ba sinasabi ni Gandhi, the true measure of a civilization is in how you treat your animals and its prisoners. What does that say about the Philippine prison system? Na yung simpleng, wala pa nga doon sa maximum no? Yung sa QC ninyo dati, sorry pero yung simpleng amoy noon, talagang parusa na talaga yung init niya, yung humidity inside. Yung ano bang sagot sa ganun, sir?
Well, indeed, nakakaiyak yung sitwasyon ng ating penal system ngayon. We have the second most congested prison population in the whole world, right?
Next only to
Haiti.
Wow.
Yes. And we have 258% congestion rate. All right? And maraming dahilan yan. It's because of prolonged trial detention,
Yan.
long sentences, and mga delays sa mga hearings natin, and so on and so forth. And it leads to death in custody. Maraming namamatay dahil sa sakit.
Correct.
It leads to lack of reformation and rehabilitation, and it leads to a lot of secondary problems like drug trade sa loob, violence sa loob, etc. Very common yan. Though in the past how many years, the BJMP and the Bucor had, really tried to wrestle the problem, right?
Gusto ko pa sana itanong sa'yo.
Oo.
Yung pag-merge ng dalawang yan, di ba? May proposal kung anyway.
Okay,
Sige.
yeah. So marami namang pagbabago ngayon, improvements. Ang Bucor, marami silang mga facilities na na-construct lately. And plano nga ni Sir DG Katapang na isaayos yung maximum security compound ng Bilibid. Sarado na yan. And going regional prisons para mas malapit sa mga PDLs yung kulungan po nila. So it's gaining some track, unti-unti. Ang Quezon City Jail sa
Nilipat
Kamuning
na.
is a thing of the past. Mayroon ng modern facility na nakatayo sa Payatas. And it's designed for 5,000 PDLs, and it only has around 3,400 PDLs at the moment.
Napaka-interesting, napakaraming aligned disciplines ng criminology pala, no?
Psychology, sociology, social work, mental health, even architecture,
Yes.
even public administration.
Foucauldian yan. Naku, wala pa nga tayo doon sa idea na minomonitor ka, sinusurveillance ka. No?
Okay.
Pero, Dr. Raymond Narag, maraming salamat po sa oras.
Alright,
niyo.
thank you.
Sir, saan ka nila maaring puntahan o mabasa kung interesado pa sila sa mga sinasabi ko?
Okay, I'm very active sa social media. Mayroon akong Facebook account. Ang tawag ko sa akin sarili ay The Filipino Criminologist. At mayroon akong mga analysis about crime, justice, and other important issues that affects our criminal justice system.
Alright.
I also regularly contribute sa Rappler. Ang
Yes.
tawag naman sa akin doon ay The Pinoy Criminology.
The Pinoy Criminologist, tandaan nyo yan. Hindi niya kayo tuturuan gumawa ng krimen, pero Malthusian, halimbawa, ano? Ang problema ba natin, Malthusian hanggang sa mga preso natin? Or kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng krimen, ay hindi natin na-manage yung resources natin? Or is that an outdated thinking? This and more. Maraming salamat, Sir Raymond Narag, sa inyong oras.
Alright, thank you very much din sa...
Alright, Political Beat will be back right after this quick break. Sir. Gorebox. How can anything with such a name not produce young monsters, right? Look, a tragedy occurs involving young people, and somebody inevitably points to the same old villain, or one of the same old villains, the video game, that pixelated pestilence, the digital boogeyman, violent video games. The logic being, one of the shooters was playing Gorebox prior, therefore Gorebox is to blame. But if that were the case, why is no one blaming bowling, which the shooters of Columbine had been playing before unleashing their massacre in 1999? And add to that, Gorebox has been in circulation since 2022. This argument has always been wonderfully convenient. A video game cannot hire lawyers, hold press conferences, or file a libel suit. It is easier to blame a teenager's browsing history than to ask uncomfortably complex questions about alienation, family breakdown, classroom culture, untreated mental distress, and access to firearms. Studies have long ago shown no causal link between video games and violent behavior. The American Psychological Association said that it is not scientifically sound to attribute real-world mass shootings or criminal violence to video gaming. Violence, they note, stems from far more complex social problems. A comprehensive 2019 Oxford study found, quote, a whole lot of nothing in the link between violent games and actual adolescent behavior. If video games were culpable for real-world carnage, how do you explain Japan, the source of countless hyper-violent video games, comic books, and animation? Though the Japanese consume video games as much as Americans, Japan has a nearly non-existent violent crime rate, not to mention gun deaths. If entertainment were the culprit, the entire planet would have been wiped out in a bloody multiplayer deathmatch long ago. So research, science, empirical data, something that cannot be presented by one senator who's pushing for lowering the age of criminal responsibility to 10 years. That he had spent some time in maximum penitentiary and claims intimate knowledge of the deep, dark workings of the criminal mind cannot exactly be considered scientific research. And we thought illegal drugs were the real triggers for violent behavior. But I wouldn't be surprised if, soon enough, the usual simpletons would demand the usual blood test for the two suspects. These are almost the same simpletons who celebrate violence in other forms, oftentimes in real life, whether applauding drug wars, glorifying strongmen, cheering for public humiliation, and cultivate a political culture of constant conflict. Violent video games make an excellent scapegoat because they are simple. Unfortunately, reality is not. And every time we settle for the simple explanation, we move farther from understanding why these things happen, and one step closer to ensuring they will happen again. And that's the word of the Lord for tonight. And that's the Political Beat this Wednesday, 24th of June. I am Lourdes de Vera. Please enjoy the rest of your evening.